Welcome into the 615 Sessions podcast. We've got Zach Lyons, who I think is still in Mobile, Alabama for reasons that are beyond me. What the hell are you still doing there? The practice
got the game tomorrow. Got the game tomorrow, man.
Nobody stays for the game. The teams don't even stay for the game.
Listen, I'm not Rand Carthon. I'm all ball all day. Listen, the Titans I don't want to hear the all ball all day anymore, except for as a joke. Because Mike Bergonzi, he left after Wednesday's practices, the entire crew. They just left the scouts behind. Like, come on.
I bet they napped on the plane too. These,
Well, that was probably more partying induced than anything.
Well, that's what the Senior Bowl is.
Yeah,
typically a part of. It's a rowdy time. I know it's not your first time, but you've been doing great work down there. You talked to Mike Bergonzi for the podcast. The podcast is, of course, Football and Other F Words. You can also hear Zach on Blaine and Zach Cover 2, which airs weekdays 1 to 3 right after the radio show. So 1,000-foot view, how's it been?
It didn't live up to the hype. I probably built it up in my head. The quarterbacks were a disgrace, very boring. I know there's some people that think that Jackson Dart cemented themselves as like quarterback 3 or even as close to quarterback 2, but Ramon echoed my sentiment this morning. I think even Coach Mack on your all show said something funny about the quarterbacks. They've just been bad. But that's how it's been the last 3 years here. I think it's because the college game is so drastically different than what they're used to getting here. You get what I'm saying? Like, they're trying to cram a whole offseason's worth of learning how the NFL wants their offense ran in 3 days. And they just never look good down here at all.
Yeah, and I mean, that's kind of always been my experience. I haven't been to Senior Bowl this year, but I want to say I was at the last like 3 or 4. Either way, the quarterbacks are always kind of underwhelming because you're expecting big stuff out of high-profile college football stars. And that's what, I mean, Jalen Miller was a college football star. Jackson Dart was maybe not a college football star, but he was a high-level college football quarterback. Riley Leonard played for a national championship, all these different kinds of things. And I think, you're probably right on the level of hype that gets built up in our heads versus, oh, Milroe and Dart have never taken snaps under center, and we're going to do that this week at practice. And then we're going to throw you out there in practice with guys that you haven't practiced with before, and it's probably going to look pretty shitty because Bo Nix and Michael Penix last year were probably the 2 biggest talking points of guys whose stock fell coming out of the Senior Bowl, when in reality, teams had them graded high enough on their board for a variety of different reasons. It's just kind of a crash test at what an NFL offseason actually is.
Also, why does it matter? I mean, think about it. Jalen Hurts, we just realized, had his first non-play action pass under center just a few weeks ago into his career. The Tennessee Titans ran a ton of shotgun. I don't even know if really going under center even matters as much anymore in today's NFL.
Well, it's always been it's always interesting, though, the amount of trickle up that the NFL seems to kind of fight off for as long as humanly possible before finally accepting, no, offense can be easier than we're making it. I understand that the hash marks are different in college from college to pro, and that it changes some of the spacing in terms of the plays that you're trying to run or the concepts that you're trying to run. But eventually you run what the players are most comfortable with, and the smartest teams have been implementing many college concepts into their offenses and trying to make it work. Andy Reid does it, for God's sakes.
Right. I mean, it just, I was kind of thinking about that the other day about, making a big deal of Jackson Dart's, eventually he got it on day 3. And I'm just thinking, and he's probably going to go to a team that the people drafting him don't even want him playing under center all that much. Like it's going to be a whole non-issue talking point in about like 5 months, 6 months.
So what did you learn about this about the Titans at the Senior Bowl that you didn't know previously, or what did you get more information about if you didn't learn something new outright?
Yeah, I don't think they're really going to use, or at least I don't think Bergonzi's really going to use analytics as much as we probably assume when it comes to it being married into his draft process. They are tape driven. And to be honest, probably most teams are, but I'm sure there are teams that, rely on analytics a little bit more. And you would think with Chad Brinker and the models that he's built, the money being invested and poured into the analytics department by Amy Adams Strunk and ownership, that you would kind of think that, okay, they're probably going to be pretty analytics driven. Mm-hmm. And I think what's going to happen is that they're coming in, they're building out, they're prospect profiles, their size profile, their athleticism profiles, and they're just going to go ahead and just roll with the tape with a little bit of analytics built in. And I would assume then in the analytics will be more of a background situation. They're going to be augmented to on the profile. It's very, I would say in the hierarchy of things, it's going to go tape, character, which means, investigating to their background, who they are, what they are, and then the analytics. So whereas I felt like maybe even last year or the year before, you could almost go more analytics driven, specifically last year, and probably come away with an accurate description of the players that they were going to take. This year, maybe not so much.
Yeah, but I think, listen, this is the only NFL organization I've ever covered. So I'm not going to act like I know about, at least in some level of detail, how other organizations operate beyond what's out there to be reported upon, and without having, boots on the ground knowledge of the Ravens or the Niners or anything else. Like what the Titans are is still new to this in principle. Yep. And I think it's okay for them to, I like that outline better, as I guess what I'm trying to get across. Like I do think that the tape should be the most important thing first. And
always,
you have to get to know the player as a part of the process to understand what level of responsibility. Can I trust this person, right? That's the most important things beyond, are you physically able to play in the game today? Can I trust you to do what we're trying to execute here so I can fit you as a piece in this larger puzzle and make sure that this thing works as close to what I think it's supposed to look like in my head on the field as humanly possible. And then the number should always be there, because you should always want more information at your disposal to inform your decision making, not to dictate your decision making. And I just don't understand why that's been so hard for people to parse.
Well, it's also that it's to me, I think the biggest thing about data is that everybody thinks the data and the analytics is 100% correct. So if you have a model, your model should be right 100% of the time, when that's not how data and probabilities work, right? Just because we know that this one set of data translates very well to the NFL level. Let's say pressure to sack, right? Pressure to sack, career pressure to sack ratio for a quarterback translates very well. But you still need the tape. You can't just rely on that, because how much of that is actually the offensive lineman's fault? How much of it is the quarterback's fault? And so you have to always go back to the tape. But Chad Brinker injury model, right? That was a big talking point all last year. And then L'Jarius Sneed gets injured. Chido Awuzie gets injured. Two players that had prior medical concerns. But sometimes you have to make moves to better your team that are exceptions to the rule. And we don't know really what the model said about either of those players either. But that also doesn't mean a 100% healthy career football player doesn't come to the Tennessee Titans or another team and pulls a hamstring. There is no certainty in football, and there's no certainty outside of your basic math principles of 1 + 1 = 2, that, probabilities are called probabilities for a reason. Probably it'll happen. Probably it won't. We don't know.
Yeah. And that, that I think is just like anything else, like the front office structure that it's taken them now 3 tries to try and get right. And we'll see if they got it right this time. They're taking swings at this thing. They're taking hacks at it for the past couple of years, and maybe they've gotten it right this time. We'll find out. Obviously, it'll take us some time, October, November, before we can determine, okay, what they've put in place actually worked here en route to fielding a meaningfully. Shut up. You're going to ask your draft questions here in just a second, you vulture. I think that there are a lot of different ways that people are hyper scrutinizing them. Understandably so. They're the worst team in football last year. They've looked like dopes for 3 straight years trying to figure this shit out. And now they're, at least organizationally, I've gotten some pushback on, well, why are you making us sound like we don't know what we're doing? This, that, and the other, chestnut checkers, all these different things. Okay, I look forward to you being vindicated in this moment, because that will mean that we have not wasted our time talking about losing shitty football.
Yeah, I mean, I will say this: for my one-on-one with Borgonzi, I felt much better about the direction that they're going. but I'm still in prove it mode, right? Like you're going to have to prove it. We still have a free agency to go through. We still have draft to go through. Then we have to actually play the game. So like, I feel better. A lot of the fans feel better after the Bergonzi interview. And I'm willing to put everything else in the past as far as, okay, all this stuff happened. Now it's time to move forward. But are you going to be the same team that you've always been these last few years? Or are you actually going to show strike? Because I understand, and probably this year the message will be, hey, we're roster turning and we're rebuilding. And they really are. There's going to have to turn over the majority of the roster again. But you've got to be competitive. You cannot throw, all these double-digit losses back out on the field and go 3-14 and expect us to think that, you got it right. You did it, fellas. Here's your participation trophy for 2025. No, you're going to have to show tangible progress that goes beyond just, hey, we're flipping the roster. We collected talent and all that kind of stuff. Like actually show us what you're doing, make the plan look tangible, and let the results come in.
Yeah, and then once you've done winning, or once you've gotten back to winning, then you can give me the high and mighty.
Give me 2 seasons before. I think they need to give us 2 seasons before they give us the high and mighty. Because if they fire the coach, then what are we doing here? Like, I mean, you should have already fired the coach if you were going to fire him a year later.
I think it's 2 years of meaningful winning before they do public high and mighty. But I think privately, if they do any winning of consequence, I'm going to get plenty of high and mighty directed my way, which is fine. That's fine. I'll be there too if you slip up. God help you. But with everything that's gone on, you've done a great job. You interviewed Mike Borgonzi. The interview is available in the podcast feed for Football and Other F Words. It's also available if you choose to watch said interview. We have that on 104.5 The Zone's YouTube channel. All right, Bert, get in here and ask your damn draft questions before.
Yeah, we got to get that dude the hell out of here. Doesn't that bother anybody else? Just the sound of his voice sometimes. Zach, you guys did an incredible job at the Senior Bowl. I was kind of I felt myself just almost hyperactively like, did they say something else about this guy? Did I miss something they said? A couple questions for me. For me, the Senior Bowl is about putting players in unfamiliar positions or positions that they'll have to be more akin to in the NFL. Which guys kind of shined when they were put in those positions? An example like Wyatt Millum out of West Virginia having to be moved inside. Which one of those guys impressed you with being put outside of their comfort zone?
Well, definitely not Wyatt Millum. He was terrible all week. He did not handle anything very well. And oh man, I would say I don't think that he didn't really switch positions very much, but Miles Frazier really handled himself. He's an interior guard traditionally at LSU. He played outside at right tackle quite a few times, and he really excelled out there. It was a bunch of people that did not take it very well. Usually, like Jonah Savania from Arizona, he played better as guard than he did tackle, and we all thought he measured it great at tackle. He had quick feet to play tackle. He played both left tackle and right tackle throughout the season this year for Arizona, but he gets here and he can't do it. So they moved him to guard, played better at guard. So Miles Frazier played pretty good at right tackle. He played pretty good at guard. As far as just maybe stepping up to the level of competition, I'd have to say Carson Vincent from Alabama and A&M continued to put out good reps all week long. And a lot of people think he probably talked himself to be a top 100 player this year. And hey, I got 3HL calling me. I told Buck I had to be out of here by 3:20. I got 3HL calling me, so I got to answer his phone. You can hit me up on 3HL. Sorry, Bert.
Bastards. Look what you've done. Look what you've done. When I can actually ask some real questions,
I got
to ask one question. I got to ask one question. Look, now he's getting to just sit in the background and listen to me bitch about this.
He's welcome to leave the podcast. It's fine. You got one question? Who promised you any questions? I gave you a question. Thank you, Buck, for letting me be a part of the podcast today.
Thank you, Buck, for cutting me off, man. Let me ask you some stuff.
Okay.
Some of the players that were kind of highlighted.
Wait. Before you ask me a question, I must remind the people that are here that the podcast is presented by Zen Sports, where they are currently offering you $100, up to $100 on your no danger first wager in the Zen Sports app. When you use the promo code ATOZTN, they make betting even better at Zen Sports Sportsbook. Download the app today. Get involved. You can get profit boosts. You can get parlays. You can get your big game bets in. They have so many offers for you on all your favorite major sports. Terms and conditions do apply. Gambling problem, call 1-800-889-9789. Must be 21 plus and in the state of Tennessee to bet at Zen Sports. Talk to me.
I feel like Senior Bowl week, we kind of sweep a lot of the stuff. A lot of people are being introduced to these players for the first time. But if you watch college football, you probably
Including the
heard.
coaches, by the way.
Right, 100%. If you watch college football, you're probably familiar with a number of these players, namely Elijah Arroyo. And it was interesting to me to see for everyone to just forget that this guy's sophomore and junior seasons were marred by injury. 2022 tore his ACL. And wasn't able to be super present until this year. Had the one of the fastest speeds on a certain play in college football. He was moved up. Daniel Jeremiah was slobbing on the knob of Elijah Arroyo this weekend. Talked about him being a potential.
Metaphorically speaking, he's not alleging anything about Daniel Jeremiah.
Love DJ. He put out most of the players this year, 20 to 60 in the belly of this draft, are around the same grade. So it doesn't surprise me when people say, oh, Elijah Arroyo, he could be a first-round pick. Oh, the kid out of Marshall, Green, he could be a first-round pick. Hell yeah. The 59th overall prospect could be a first-round pick because they're all, it depends who's picking, right? Who needs what? How do you fit? What defense are they running? What do they need on the offensive line? So over this process, it would not surprise me to hear guys talked about as first-round picks that probably won't be. But I wonder from your situation, as someone who maybe not might be as familiar with these players, is it how do you weigh that when you're looking at someone like Elijah Arroyo, who balled out at the Senior Bowl, was super impressive in one-on-ones and team? How do you balance his history versus the potential?
Yeah, potential always wins. I think in that particular situation, and you've seen that bear itself out. I mean, just to make it local, right? The potential of Jeffrey Simmons was too good to allow him to continue to slide past the Titans, where Jeff was taken in 19 with was it the 16th or 17th overall pick? He was late teens because he had the ACL tear coming off he was training for the combine in February. He wasn't invited. People forget Jeff wasn't invited to the combine at Indianapolis because of the domestic violence situation that he had in his background. That was a recent league policy that was put into place the year that Jeff would have theoretically gotten to attend the combine. So he's training for the combine on his own. He tears his ACL. He's coming off the draft process where many people start talking about the issue that happened in high school, that he went, without his college career without incident. Now the injury obviously factored in as a late kind of extra just detriment to him, because Jeff would have been a top 10 at minimum draft pick that year in a draft that was filled with many talented players. Caleb Farley, another one. He had the potential to be the best cornerback in that group because the athletic traits were off the charts relative to, this guy hasn't played the position very much even. He's a converted wide receiver. Then he missed time due to an ACL tear. Then the COVID situation happened and he sat out. He hadn't played corner very much. But still, after he slid down to 22, he had the back stuff as well that caused him to further slide. John Robinson, to his detriment, ended up spending a first-round pick on Caleb Farley there. So those are extreme examples. Well, Farley certainly an extreme example of injury versus potential. But the potential with these, I've been around coaches too long to not see them all almost to a fault, almost to a man, default to, but we can do something with him. But they have confidence, just as athletes have confidence, just as people in their, in whatever your line of work, if you're operating at the highest level, you have some level of confidence, of ego, that I can do this job better than the next person who might do my job in a similar way. Coaches and talent evaluators even do this all the time. So it doesn't surprise me. I try not to, like, the way that I view Senior Bowl after having done this, and I know this is, I don't know if you have another question here, Bert, but just as an extension to that question, I've done enough Senior Bowls where I used to see the highlights on Twitter like everybody else, and people making a big deal out of Malik Willis having a day at the Senior Bowl because he can whip it through the air 70 yards off his back foot without proper mechanics, without proper footwork, because Malik's a very talented athlete. Now, where that ball's going to land, is that ball going to be anywhere in the vicinity of the receiver? Those things aren't necessarily measured on Twitter the way that the individual drills, the one-on-one coaching experience that they get relative to the rest of their position versus what you see in 11 on 11, or this guy caught this many passes with a quarterback that he's never played with before, right? You're mixing and matching parts all week long, and mixing and matching players who have never been asked to operate within a certain style of system that the Jets or the Vikings or whichever staffs are running the Senior Bowl in that particular year may be asking them to do based on what the coaches know, because the coaches are coaching what they know, because that's what you're going to be asked to do when you get to the NFL level. I always put the Senior Bowl in a compartment, and it's a part of the process that takes us to the draft, so that when this player gets drafted, if this player gets drafted by whatever organization that you're cataloging, you can go back through that thread and see, okay, this was the vibe around him at the Senior Bowl. This was the vibe by the time we got to the Combine. This is how things changed for that particular team during free agency. And this is ultimately why they landed on this line of thinking based on where that draft pick ended up going. I know that's a long response to a short question, but there's a lot there, I think.
I know. And the other side of that is weighing potential versus time to achieve potential, right? Where some of these players are not fresh, young, like Harold Fannin, the tight end out of Bowling Green. He's not even 21 yet. So while his body and his measurables might not be exactly what you'd like, he has time to fill out his frame. He has time to reach his potential. There are other players where there is less time, and two of them are the ones that really impressed this week. Louisville quarterback Tyler Shuck and NC State tackle Anthony Belton. Two of them are the two of the older players in the class. Tyler Shuck is 26. Anthony Belton will be 27 in October. He got 2 extra years in COVID because when he was at Georgia Military, they did not play, and then he got a COVID year. So he had a net +2 of eligibility years that year. In your opinion, both the players are successful. Some people said Tyler Shuck was the most impressive quarterback at the Senior Bowl. Now, that's not really saying much. But when you're looking at that, there's 2 schools of thought, and I wonder which ones you fall in. One is, yeah, we get them for their rookie contract, and then when at the end of it, they're 31, set them free and let them be a free agent. And I would rather draft and develop, which is what this Titans is saying, draft, develop, and retain. So it seems like it would be counterproductive for the Titans to select these players, even though they were 2 of the more impressive players at the Senior Bowl.
Well, and it just depends on by what metric do you consider these players impressive? Because it's just timely that you're talking about this. Jackson Dart actually was named the top quarterback on the American squad in a vote from cornerbacks and defensive DS position groups. D lines maybe is what Jim Nagy meant to type. I guess CBs and DL position groups at Practice Player of the Week award ceremony today at the Reese Senior Bowl. So how the players view these guys, having competed against them, versus how organizations might view them, yeah, it can help stock that way, and it can certainly factor into the conversation. But you have to, as an organization, and again, based on just covering one team and see them have success and then trip and fall trying to figure it out, and theoretically trying to get back on the right track here with this new administration that they've brought in, you have to figure out what your stated tenets of talent acquisition are. Like, what do you value? Who do you want to be? What image are you trying to build this team in? Because the thing that I think, can weigh in favor or against in some of the players that you just described, and how much an individual performance in an all-star game versus a combine workout versus a 30 interview can factor into those decisions. You have to come up with a set, just a baseline set of rules that this is what we're looking for from all players across the board. And then we'll have specific height and weight measurements for a corner based on what style of defense Denard Wilson wants to run, or an offensive line must weigh X amount of pounds to play for Bill Callahan, or just things like that also factor in there. So I'm always I think, teams should be open-minded while still trying to stick to their principles based on what they know works. And that, I think, can help you cut down on some of the variance to where some of these things can be legitimate and you want to learn more about the things that you saw at the Senior Bowl, but some of them can also be the exception to the rule, and they're just kind of a flash in a pan. But it's kind of like Mike Green, the Marshall pass rusher. He has that move that goes viral this week against Josh Connerly, the Oregon tackle, where he's just leaping off the ball, going speed to power in ways that Mike Green on tape at Marshall has never shown. But those coaches set up that drill. Hey, guys, this is your moment. If you want to make a splash at the Senior Bowl, we're going to let you do it. This is going to be out there for everybody to see. And Mike Green is the guy that capitalizes on that year. Is Mike Green going to get Josh Connerly like that every time? No, that was a one-off. But it can help inform, okay, this player is willing to try something. He's going to have success here. He's going to have failures here. But we can test that baseline and flesh out more about what we need to know about this player. Does that answer it, kind of?
Nah, I didn't hear a word you said. You want to hear my draft crush?
Yes.
Willie Lampkin, North Carolina, guard. He is 5'10", 285 pounds.
He's a fire hydrant.
He is a bad dude. I'll tell you a little bit about him, but here's every one-on-one he had at the Senior Bowl.
All right. God.
He just get in, but I want to call this dude an MF so bad. Like, okay, maybe he loses, but like he's still got his hands on people. Get your fat ass out of the club. Come on, man. Who the hell do you think? Okay, that was a bad one by Willie.
Okay, fine. Draft another Aaron Brewer. See how that goes for you.
But the thing is, I don't think he has to be Aaron Brewer. At 5'10", 285, and you still a little chunky, that tells me you could be a tight 265. If you would like to come be the Tennessee Titans' new Patrick Ricard, come on down. If you would
that's an interesting school of thought, like converting those kind of guys into these fullback, and Ricard obviously played a little bit of defensive line in Baltimore too. Like they've used him in a variety of different ways. But the Chargers essentially did the same thing. I can't think of their guy's name off the top of my head, but
he's a redheaded dude.
He's got a similar background to Ricard that just, can you use these guys? Can you find functions for good football players? That's what you're tasked with doing as a coaching staff.
Scott Matlock is the guy that you're talking about. Matlock, incredible name. Speaking of the Matt, Willie Lampkin, his senior year in high school, 47-0 as a heavyweight. Won states. He was an All-American at the UNC as a 5'10" guard, and not an academic All-American, and on the freaking field American. Like, so for guys like that, Patrick Ricard played at Maine. Patrick Ricard played with a bunch of dudes who are driving UPS trucks now. Willie Lampkin played. I know everybody wants to shit on the ACC, but he played the ACC.
It's still powerful football. It's powerful,
right? Like, if you're telling me this dude, okay, fine. He can't play in the NFL on the offensive line. I understand that. Chris Jones and the like would eat him alive. But you can't tell me the dude couldn't lose some weight, come down, and play fullback. Get this guy on somebody's team. That's my dog.
Yeah, two years ago, people would have called you an idiot because what do you mean you're trying to go back to a fullback when the NFL is pivoting away from the running game? And then you look at offenses this year and everybody's trying to ground you into a pulp with their running game because these things ebb and flow every year where trends are identified, teams course correct, and that, the tactical advantage type of stuff goes on every year, and you feel like you're just looking for higher evolutions of what's come before it, and maybe that's Willie Lampkin. Who's to say?
Jake, you're a freaking idiot. Shut the hell up. Go hang out with one of them 75 kids you got in your profile picture. Don't nobody want to hear it.
That's a lot of children.
I'm just saying, Philip Rivers over here. Maybe you're the dipshit. You're the one watching the show. Come on, man. What an idiot. Have a good weekend.
All right, it's just me at the end of the podcast. That's fine. I appreciate you guys hanging out. When we get together next week, we'll have Derek Mason on, the now Tennessee Sports Hall of Famer. D-Mace went in or is getting inducted. We're excited for him. We'll look forward to that. That'll be a great way to start Super Bowl week. If you're a primetime watcher, we're going to have a different schedule this week because I am going to be out of town, Wednesday and Thursday. So we will do a Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday primetime this week, and that will take up the time that we have there, getting you ready for a Chiefs Eagles Super Bowl rematch. Have a great rest of your weekend, and I will see you at some point, probably